My personal check. And brother, if you don't think this is as good as gold, call anywhere in the country. Anywhere. I got more money and more banks around the United States than any man alive. $10,000. You know what this is for? Because I want you to bring me the blood and the sweat and the guts of Jerry Lawler. And you, for trying to intimidate me, for trying to pull something off, are going to have to watch the slow destruction of your big-time hero. You understand what I'm telling you? I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire. You don't. Yeah, well, take this and take this. It's my word. $10,000, brother. I'll sign the check the day you deliver to me a piece of Jerry Lawler.
The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Welcome to Dinner with the King. I'm Glenn Moore, joined here by WWE Hall of Famer. He is the man, Jerry the King Lawler. We're sitting here at your barbecue restaurant here in Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry. I'm all set because I'm excited to talk about our main topic today. I wish it was under better circumstances. The latest news, we'll talk about Ric Flair for our main topic for this evening because you faced off against Flair a few times. But we're going to talk about some other things going on, some news topics when it comes to SummerSlam, The Rock, and I want to review I think, in my opinion, the greatest Jerry Lawler SummerSlam moment, and that was back in 1996 here up in my stopping grounds in Cleveland, Ohio, as a heel Jerry Lawler with. You
can't get used to the fact that when you come down to my hometown of Memphis that you're not still in Cleveland, can you?
Right. It takes. I get here, I get all set up. I'm so worried about getting my laptop set up and all the recording equipment. I forget where I am sometimes.
Well, let me just tell you, speaking of that, my general manager here at Jerry Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company, at the restaurant here where you love to show up every week and set up all your paraphernalia. Look at the table here. There's barely any room for food. But my general manager has complained about the fact that you come in every week, you get a free meal, and you very seldom plug the restaurant. You hardly ever. That's what he said. He said, you guys come in here and you talk about everything but where you're at. So let's real quick tell everybody that I have a barbecue restaurant. It's called Jerry Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company. It's on Germantown Parkway in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's open every day from 11 to 9 p.m. So just come on by anytime. You're going to get some of the best. Tell them, is it some of the best barbecue you've ever tasted, Glenn?
I've tasted some good barbecue up in Cleveland, Ohio, but here, hold on.
In Cleveland, Ohio, would they have good barbecue?
They have good barbecue up there.
Look, if you said you would taste good barbecue in Kansas City or maybe Texas or even St. Louis,
come on,
or maybe in the Carolinas,
Can I finish, King?
Well, where was it in Cleveland that you had good barbecue?
Do you want me to plug a Cleveland restaurant on your show?
I don't care.
Okay, I'll plug. Proper Pig Barbecue Joint in Cleveland, Ohio, in Lakewood, Ohio. Excellent barbecue. If you're in Cleveland, go there. So there's a free plug for the Proper Pig Smokehouse in good old Lakewood, Ohio. But no, Jerry, I was going to say, before you rudely interrupted me, I've had some great barbecue up in Cleveland, but nothing compares to good old-fashioned Tennessee barbecue here, especially here in Memphis at your barbecue.
Thank you.
Restaurant. So there you
go. Now, look at my general manager over there smiling right now. He's happy with the plug. He's not going to be happy with the Proper Pig plug, but now that you've mentioned it, said that our barbecue is better, that's okay.
Yeah. But I follow. When it comes to the show and social media and your social media, I follow closely what's going on. And I always see people posting pictures of not only your barbecue restaurant, but also your bar on Beale Street. Hey, I'm here. Are you here, Jerry? So I see a lot of people going there and posting pictures. So if you do go to either one of those establishments, make sure you post a photo on Twitter and tag Jerry, and we'll give you a retweet from our Dinner with King Twitter account.
Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to say we'll give you a free meal. You scared me there for a second. Yeah, we'll definitely give you a retweet. Hey, you know what? This past weekend, I did a show in Philadelphia, and we talked about it last week. You know that I was going to be in Philadelphia in the afternoon or in the morning. Actually, we started signing at 9:30 in the morning and signed right up till almost 3:30 in the afternoon, just one nonstop, one after another. Me and good old JR. And man, it was so good to have JR sitting next to me again. And that, you know what the main topic was? Barbecue. That's what we talked about, barbecue and our barbecue restaurants more than we talked about the wrestling business. But it was great to see JR, and he's really doing well, and he's just he's just the same good old JR that. You sit right down next to the guy, and I don't know what it is about us. I don't know what kind of chemistry it is, but it's just like it was back on a Monday Night Raw. You know, every person that came up and sat down to have their picture made with us or whatever. You know, JR had a line, or I had a line, and we just had a great time. It was really good to see good old JR again.
You know, I have a WWE Network show idea. I'm going to pitch it to you, Jerry. Ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to have you and JR. I want you guys to call some current great matches in the WWE and call it Attitude Era style.
Well, then what would we do with that footage or that?
You put it on the
audio?
network. You put it on the network.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So you and I know, King, you're a busy guy and you don't want to sit in front of the monitor and do commentary. You know, but hey. You have your own network show, all right? They're going to be paying you more money probably. So it'll be you and JR, and you're doing commentary, Attitude Era style, on some great matches that have happened in the WWE, maybe in the PG era, because you can't say puppies, but you can on the network.
Well, what makes you think that? What makes you think we would be able to do that on the network now, and go back and use the Attitude Era type commentary? I don't think they would. There's plenty
of content on the WWE Network now from the old Attitude they still have up on there. I know, I realized that, but that was done back in the day when it was, it was less politically correct. Now, I don't think you could get away with doing things that were, or saying things that were not politically correct. Even though you're saying, oh, this is a throwback type show, we're gonna do it like as if I think they would. I don't know. I don't think they would go along with that. But you're not sponsored.
I think it's a great idea. I think it would be very entertaining, and maybe you could pitch it to the WWE. You're tight with all the big wigs there.
Maybe I can. Yeah, but but you're not sponsored by the sponsors that sponsor Raw and SmackDown. That have a factor in the PG era, but I mean, you're on the network. Anything goes. It's their network. You can put anything on there. They had Edge and Christian talking about TNA, on their own show. I mean, anything goes on the network.
Throw that idea out there for me doing more work and making more travel for me and all that sort of stuff.
You're sitting.
Hey, speaking of old school wrestling, I talked a little bit about the fact that we were doing a pilot show for our classic Memphis wrestling here in Memphis. Well, they picked it up. It's going to go. We're going to shoot the first show. Let's see. When are we doing? September 9th.
Oh.
We're going to get Bill Dundee back in the studio, and Bill and I are going to shoot the first episode of Jerry Lawler's Classic Memphis Wrestling. The Memphis wrestling that everybody grew up here in Memphis watching on Saturday mornings, and we're going to go back and revisit the thrilling days of yesteryear. And that's going to be a weekly show there in Memphis coming up soon.
What channel?
Yeah, it's going to be on channel 30, CW 30.
There you go. So Jerry Lawler making the return to Memphis TV.
Woohoo!
Are you going to promote the podcast on there?
I'll probably, maybe not. I don't know.
Come on, Jerry. You got to promote the.
Okay. You're always looking for a free plug.
I'm looking to plug to get more downloads, which equals more monetary value for us. And this weekend for SummerSlam, if you don't promote the podcast on the kickoff show, you got 2 hours, Jerry. 2 hours to promote the podcast. This one.
Oh my gosh, you want me to promote the podcast on the SummerSlam pre-show?
Everybody else plugs their podcast or whatever they're doing. You can fix 5 seconds. Hey.
I'll see if I can.
Yeah, I'm sure Kevin Dunn will allow it. He's your buddy.
Well, the good thing about that is it's easier to say you're sorry than to ask permission because it's live. And if I plug it, there's nothing they can do about it except get on my rear end afterwards.
Make sure to wear. Well, here, maybe if you wear your Dinner with the King shirt.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll fly. What, you know what? That's what I can't remember. The SummerSlam is not a tuxedo event, is it?
I mean, it's like the WrestleMania of the summer. I'm pretty sure you can get away. I don't know. Actually, I don't
think the announcers wear tuxedos.
No, I think you can get away with your Dinner with the King podcast shirt.
I always think it would be great, to wear like a whatever, even almost a tank top or something you'd wear at summertime around the beach, or it's supposed to be the biggest party of the summer.
No, don't wear it.
I'm not going to wear a tank top, but I'm just
that's
some
trashy.
kind of casual, like a trashy. I'm not talking about
Here we
one
go.
of those old
I can see Renee Young, all dressed up, looking nice, and here's Jerry Lawler with a tank top on, looking like he just got off the beach.
I think Renee Young should look like she just got off the beach on this show.
Well, I wouldn't. I'm sure.
You wouldn't complain about that, would you?
I wouldn't, but I'm sure Dean Ambrose would.
Why?
I don't know.
Why is that?
Because.
Did you see that Howard Stern just took a bunch of great pictures of his wife wearing a bikini that's going to be in a magazine coming out? I mean, they were just talking about it on TMZ. Howard Stern did a whole photo shoot of his lovely wife wearing a very, very revealing and skimpy bikini, and he's very proud of her, and he's very proud of the pictures. They're going to be in a magazine coming up.
I mean, okay, I get the whole SummerSlam, coming off the beach thing, but you're in New York City. There's no beaches in New York.
Sure, there are.
Yeah, if you want to get
around there,
if you want to catch
Jersey Shores, that sort of stuff.
If you want to get a needle in your foot when you're walking on the beach,
that's not true. I don't think, is it?
I don't know. Why don't you find out this weekend, SummerSlam? Are you excited?
Are you excited? My swim trunks just in case.
Are you excited?
Yes, I am excited about SummerSlam. I mean, I swear, and I'm, being brutally honest here. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking at what they had on paper up to that point, and I was thinking, man, it just seems like SummerSlam should be bigger. But man, in the last couple of weeks, it has gotten bigger. I mean, this is just to me, I'm really excited about some of these matches. I love the fact that Dean Ambrose, what do they call it now? Shield. It's not.
Well, I mean, last night. It's been the whole thing, with Ambrose reluctantly, not wanting to join forces with Seth Rollins because of the whole Shield thing that happened, a few years ago. But last night they put their fists out together. So, I mean,
right.
It was like, all we're missing is Roman Reigns. But it looks like, Shield, 2/3 of the Shield are back together. Yeah,
and going against Sheamus and Cesaro for the Raw Tag Team titles, that's suddenly a big match, at least in my opinion. I'm really looking forward to that. And then what else did we find out? Now Bray Wyatt is not going to be just facing Finn Balor. Bray Wyatt's going to be facing the Demon. And I've been waiting on this a long, long time. I mean, that's been my one gripe about Finn Balor. I think we need less Finn Balor and more Demon.
Yeah,
and I realize that that's got to be cumbersome and time consuming to get into that character and to become the Demon. But my gosh, I think it's worth it. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And that's two crazy characters all of a sudden colliding. Bray Wyatt, the Eater of Worlds, going against the Demon. That's awesome. And then, of course, Shane being the special referee in the Kevin Owens and AJ Styles match. That's cool. Big Show going against Big Cass with what's his name up in the Shark Tank. They love that Shark Tank lately, don't they?
Yeah, Enzo Amore will be in the Shark Tank.
Enzo Amore, and then of course, man, the big news now in the what are they calling that? It's the four-way.
Fatal four-way.
Fatal four-way for the Universal title. But, I mean, all that pales in comparison with the fact that if Brock Lesnar loses, he's leaving the WWE.
He's leaving. UFC probably, maybe. I mean, this is a good. It adds a little bit of a question if if Brock loses, if he's going to leave WWE to go fight in UFC, have a fight there.
It doesn't add a little bit of a question. It adds a huge question. I mean, that's when wrestling is fun. That's when wrestling is exciting. Everybody when you can't figure out what's going to happen.
Right.
Because all the fans love to sit back and try to figure out what's going to happen. And more so than not, if you do figure out and what's going to happen, you're really disappointed. And if you're surprised, that's when wrestling is great. And this is one of those things where I think everybody is not going to be able to figure out what's going to happen. I mean, who knows? This is going to be big. I mean, Brock Lesnar not in the WWE anymore, and will he take his mouthpiece with him?
Yeah, Paul Heyman.
You can imagine that.
He comes once a month anyway. So I mean, will he really miss Brock Lesnar if he leaves?
Yes, trust me.
No,
yes.
I agree. I think, but it adds an aura to the match. It makes it a big fight feel. If I'm quoting Michael Cole, but yeah, I'm looking forward to SummerSlam. Some of the main events, and looking forward to seeing what transpires up in Brooklyn. You have NXT Brooklyn Takeover, which is becoming its own thing each and every SummerSlam weekend, and also for WrestleMania. So they have their own thing on Saturday night.
And I guess they've already announced that SummerSlam 2018 will be back in Brooklyn again.
Yeah, they're making a yearly tradition.
Yeah.
So nice. Yeah. Do you like going to Brooklyn up in New York?
I'll be honest with you. Just from the talent standpoint, Brooklyn and the Barclays Center, is very, very difficult situation to get into and out of. Such limited parking and that sort of stuff for the talent. Most arenas that we work in around the country, you actually have, there's a loading dock or something, and you actually park there's parking area inside the arena itself for the talent. Not so at the Barclays Center. I mean, we have to park somewhere and be shuttled over to the arena and then afterwards and that sort of thing. So that part of it is tough. But inside Barclays Center is it's a really cool venue, especially for the fans. It's a great building, and the fans there in Brooklyn, they're off the charts.
And people come over all over the country for SummerSlam. It's like a mini WrestleMania.
They come from all over the world because that's New York's such a great destination for tourists and visitors and that sort of thing. So they pour in there for SummerSlam.
Well, for SummerSlam, I'm sure like WrestleMania, there is a WWE hotel headquarters for the week. Is it the same thing for SummerSlam? All you guys in one hotel and you guys are shipped over by bus, for the show?
That's another thing about that area right around Barclays Center in Brooklyn. No, there's so much talent. You kind of have to be divided up into different hotels.
Oh, wow.
There's the hotels there right around that area are smaller, and there's not enough hotel rooms and space for all of the talent to be in the same spot.
You ever had I know when guys drive out from the arena, you kind of have to go through the crowd. People are waiting to get autographs and, get pictures and whatnot, hoping to get a glimpse of their favorite superstar. And I know Chris Jericho and Randy Orton and all these guys have had run-ins with fans, getting a little bit too close for comfort. You ever had any, when you're leaving the arena or even getting there, run-ins with fans, trying to get too close or just too rabid of a fan?
Back in the day, back in the old school Memphis wrestling, and especially when I first started, I could tell you tons of stories about that. But now the security is so good. And I also, it's a whole different situation if you're a fan favorite than if you're, somebody that they don't like or somebody that they're going to try to want to have a confrontation with. And fortunately, in my case, the last event I was in Philadelphia, I got out of my rental car and I was going towards the arena, and there were literally hundreds of fans lined up along a barricade there, and security was there, and there was a security guy to walk me from my car into the back of the arena, and they were just shouting, "King, come over, take a picture," whatever. So I just I was I had plenty of time, so I just stopped my bag, and the security guy walked over with me and went over to the gate, and it must have taken 100 pictures with fans. And
you don't
signed
do that.
A bunch of autographs and stuff.
I've hung out with you, and you never do that. You just wave and keep walking.
I just did.
Jerry Lawler doesn't do that kind of stuff.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, I do.
Yeah. So, but I want to, really quick, and this episode is going to be all about Ric Flair. We're going to talk about Jerry, your matches with the handful of matches you've had with Ric Flair. I have some classic audio, like you heard in the opening of the show. I have some promo audio from not only from the Memphis days, but also here in the 2000s when you faced off against his son David. And you have some stories that you're going to share about Ric Flair because of Ric Flair's current condition, and we'll talk about that shortly. But since the SummerSlam week, I want to talk about my most memorable Jerry Lawler SummerSlam moment. And that is when you faced off against Jake the Snake Roberts up in Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown. But you are a huge Browns fan. We talked about the Browns Indians on the show. But you were wearing, trying to get that heat, insider term, I'm sorry, trying to get the crowd to hate you. You were wearing a Baltimore Ravens jersey coming out saying you left tickets for David and Art Modell. I'll play some audio here shortly. But you had a match with Jake the Snake Roberts. And in the build-up of this match for SummerSlam, you poured some whiskey down his gullet of Jake the Snake, and there was a question on Twitter. They want to know, was that real whiskey that you were pouring down his throat, or was that like iced tea or something?
Oh my goodness! That's raw booze. He's dumping down Jake's throat. Look at this.
Well, Jake's off the wagon now for sure. Might as well make a night of it now, Jake.
Oh, come on. This is no time for humor. A recovered alcoholic being dosed.
That's a covered alcoholic.
This is not even. This is wrong.
I think to the best of my knowledge, or to the best of my memory, because it's so amazing that you come up with these different events. But I know that you have to actually go online and research all of this stuff. You don't remember this stuff as well either. Nobody could, I don't think. But there are certain things that happen in certain matches that take place that on certain individuals it leaves an indelible imprint. I mean, I have people all the time come up to me and say, man, I remember that one line. I'll never forget that one line that you said on Monday Night Raw in 2003 or something. I'm going, what? And they're astonished when I can't remember that specific line, and so it's really hard for me to remember all of these different things that happened in the thousands of matches that I've had over my career. But I do remember some of that build up and some of the great stuff that we were able to back in the less politically correct era that I could say about poor Jake Roberts and his, it was a situation where we were able to make something personal. And by Jake allowing us to really talk about his personal demons at the time, everybody knew that Jake had gone through alcohol problems and drug problems and he said, hey, everybody knows that it happened, so why not talk about it? And so that's what we did, and the fans related to it and made it a very personal thing. And of course, no, I do remember now. No, we didn't pour real alcohol down Jake's throat. I mean, he was trying to be a recovering alcoholic, So, right. But that's what it appeared that I was doing. But no, I think it was definitely tea.
But my other question about this before we move on is, you being a huge Browns fan, how hard was it for you to put on that Ravens jersey? And was that your idea, or was that someone in creative that wanted you to do that, get some heat? Or like I said, just how hard was that to put on that jersey and boast the Ravens, who left Cleveland just earlier that year?
Yeah, it was one of the most difficult things that I've ever done in the business. I still have never really forgiven myself for doing that. But it was a combination of ideas. It was actually Creative's idea, and of course, at the time, it was when you're trying to get raise the ire of the fans, you'll basically push the envelope as far as you could. And when it came to me and everybody knowing that I grew up near Cleveland and that I was a huge Browns fan, and had the opportunity when I had my TV show down in Memphis, my Sunday morning TV show. I would make it a point to go to Cleveland several times during the year, interview people like people like Bernie Kosar. I had Art Modell on my show interviewing, talking about Memphis, and this was at a time too when Memphis was trying to get an NFL franchise, and so Eddie Johnson, you remember Eddie Johnson, who called himself the Assassin? Eddie Johnson and I became really, really close friends, and I supplied Eddie Johnson with a wrestling mask that he actually wore under his helmet in a game, in an NFL game, and got in real big trouble with Marty Schottenheimer. But anyway, he was a head coach at the time. But I had some big time ties with the Browns, and so then for me to go up there, and it was as heartbreaking for me as it was for any Cleveland fan for the Browns to move out of Cleveland. And so at that time, everybody was sitting there, no team. The historic Cleveland Browns had become the Baltimore Ravens. And so, here I go out in Cleveland wearing a Vinny Testaverde Baltimore Ravens jacket or jersey, and saying that I left tickets for Art and David Modell at the box office to come to SummerSlam, and it was difficult, and it sure as heck made the people mad at me in Cleveland.
Really quick by Eddie Johnson. When I played high school football in Aurora, Eddie Johnson would come before our games, and he would give our pep talk. He would fire us up before the game, and that was 2000. That was 2000, and he passed away in 2003, just a few years later. But he had a colon cancer, passed away of colon cancer. But Eddie Johnson, when he would come, man, he would fire us up before the game. So that's kind of cool how you became friends with him.
Yeah, he and I became really big fans. I mean, I'm big friends because he was such a big wrestling fan. And as I said, he, with that nickname, the Assassin, he knew that that the Assassins were a big wrestling tag team from the past. And so I got him that wrestling mask, and I never expected him. He asked me to get him the mask, and I know he wore it a lot around practice and everything, but I never expected him to wear it in a game, and that became a big story. I think it might have even been a playoff game or something. It was cold, and the pictures went around on the UP on the wire, news wires, of Eddie Johnson with a wrestling mask on under his helmet, and so he told me that a couple of weeks later, that mask disappeared. He had it in his locker, and he said the mask disappeared, and he believed to the day he died that Marty Schottenheimer stole his wrestling mask.
That's great. That jersey, did you burn that, or did you keep it, or did you throw it in the garbage? What did you do? I
don't remember exactly what happened to that jersey. I know I did keep it for a long time.
What?
I did. I kept it, just as a piece of memorabilia, and I don't know what happened to that. It may have ended up in somebody's collection of Jerry Lawler memorabilia. How's your collection of my memorabilia going? I see you steal some of these cups every week when you go back. What a funny laugh you have.
I have some Jerry Lawler stuff. I have some pictures that I have that I saw on eBay that I got. I have some figurines. I don't have a big Jerry Lawler collection.
Figurines? What do you mean figurines?
Like the little action figures.
There you go, action figures.
Little figurines. Little dolls.
Yeah, God.
My father calls them dolls. You have those dolls everywhere. What are those dolls you got? No, I'm just kidding. All right. But yeah, that's my favorite Jerry Lawler. I know SummerSlam. I know you had some matches in SummerSlam and you were involved in some storylines, but that's my most memorable one just because of the whole Ravens jersey. How about those Ravens? Woo!
Be quiet, Ross. Listen up.
What about those Ravens?
They moved from Cleveland to Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta love this guy's sense of humor, Ross.
Oh,
yeah. What a guy.
I think it's pretty sick, personally.
You should have left town.
Me too, Mark.
Because these people really love their football.
God. People were pissed. People were upset with you.
Yes, they were.
All right, let's get into the main topic for this week. And we were going to have our Ask the King Anything show, and we're going to push that actually 2 weeks down the road. Next week, we're going to have another spotlight where we talk about some of the King's opponents. Next week, we're going to talk about Dusty Rhodes. We're going to talk about you facing off against him and just the stories you have, because you were, you've done some, not research, but you just came upon some things that reminded you of Dusty. So we're going to talk about Dusty next week. And we might, I'm not going to say who, Jerry. We might have a special guest next week.
Why not say who? I mean, I
don't want to jinx it. I want to have them say we might have him come on, that he doesn't come on, and then people are like,
okay, you don't have to say that, but we can tell everybody that part of the reason we're going to talk about Dusty next week is because I'm going to be wrestling Dusty's son, Cody Rhodes, coming up on August the 25th in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So, and it's maybe for the Ring of Honor Championship.
I think it is for the Ring of Honor Championship. Wouldn't that be something? Jerry Lawler winning the Ring of Honor Championship. You might as well just say it. Cody Rhodes, somehow, some way, will be on the show next week. Dinner with the King. When they're having, let you two go have your little war of the words before you guys face off up there in Massachusetts next week. At 10 days from this recording. But yeah, we're talking.
Here's what I'm concerned with.
Okay.
You say, and I'll be honest with you. I've been on the road a lot. I've been traveling a lot. I haven't seen much of the publicity for the advertising for the match. But I mean, I can't imagine that the Ring of Honor people are allowing Cody Rhodes to just say, hey, I'm putting this championship at stake against the guy who's under contract for the WWE.
Wouldn't that be something? That would make headlines, Jerry.
Well, here's what I'm hoping doesn't happen. I'm hoping that we don't get up there and it's all of a sudden, I even told Cody Rhodes this. Hope it's not one of those deals where Cody Rhodes is just saying, I'm putting the title up, and he really doesn't have the authority to. Because you know what? We're going to talk. Today's show is going to be about a very, very similar incident that happened like that between me and Ric Flair. The first time he came to Memphis, Tennessee, Ric put the title at stake, and he really didn't have the NWA's blessings to do that, but he did it on his own. And I'm hoping that this is not a situation where Cody Rhodes is doing it without the blessing of the Ring of Honor people, because you know what? I fully intend to beat Cody Rhodes, whether it's for the Ring of Honor Championship or not. And I just think it would be very embarrassing for the Ring of Honor people to all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, our title is on the waist of a guy that's under contract to the World Wrestling Entertainment. What are we going to do now?
It'd be great. You know that video that it shows you walking past Cody, like back in the behind the scenes? That video has over 500,000 views on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah. So people know about it. People are probably anxiously waiting to see what transpires, and if Jerry Lawler becomes the Ring of Honor world champion, that would be something, man. That would turn a lot of heads, and I would be interested to see what Ring of Honor does. But yeah, so Cody will be on.
And let me just tell you this. Yeah. This is so crazy. We're going to talk about Ric Flair and when he was the NWA World Champion and the matches that I had with him for the championship. Well, guess what? In a little more than a month, or exactly a month, September the 16th, I'm going to be wrestling over near Hot Springs, Arkansas, for the NWA Championship again.
Oh.
Guy named Tim Storm has the NWA Championship right now, and I'm wrestling for the NWA title in Arkansas on September the 16th. So I got a Ring of Honor Championship match coming up. I got a NWA, they're calling it the NWA World Championship match coming up, and here I am already with 168 championship match wins. So I could make it 169, 170 in the next month.
That'd be great.
I'd be a double champion at the same time.
We'll talk about the NWA because there's so many NWA territories now, and it's kind of lost its luster, don't you think? A little bit, no?
Absolutely. Yes, it has lost a lot of its luster. Certainly not. It's certainly not the NWA that was when Ric Flair, when the Nature Boy was the NWA World Champion. Not at all.
Now, the reason why we changed the subject for our show last minute, Jerry and I talked yesterday, and I always wanted to talk about Ric Flair because, before Attitude Era, it was you, Jerry, Ric Flair, Vader, Mick Foley / Cactus Jack. When it comes to wrestlers that I enjoy watching before the Attitude Era, when wrestling kind of had its boom, became mainstream. So I always wanted to talk about Rick, just in general, with you about just your matches with him and just in general. But with what's going on with Rick, who is currently in an Atlanta hospital, we're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, so anything that happens after this, we don't know about as of this recording. But we do know, this is according to Dave Meltzer, we don't have any inside information about what's going on with Rick.
Before you go into what Dave Meltzer said, let's go back a little bit. And I guess it was, when did the news break that Rick was being hospitalized? Was that Saturday, this past Saturday, or Sunday morning?
Saturday. Yes. He was admitted Saturday morning. So right. Saturday, bro.
And so, we, just like everybody else, all we heard was from Rick's publicist that Rick had been admitted to the hospital for, they said at the time, was some heart monitoring. And, and it didn't seem like it was anything serious or anything. And then a matter of hours later, the same people, Rick's publicist again, put out words that that if you're a fan of the Nature Boy, he needs your prayers, because this is a little tougher situation than they at first appeared. And then the next word that broke was that Rick was in a medically induced coma and being prepared for surgery, which suddenly really then sounded very, very serious. And the the entire world was shook up over this situation. And you and I haven't heard anything officially from Rick. I mean, I got Rick's telephone number. I sent a text, saying that Lauren and I praying for Rick, and Rick's fiance Wendy and Lauren are very good friends, and so. But all we have really actually heard is the word from the publicist. And do you have the tweet there that Charlotte Flair, Rick's daughter, sent out?
Yeah, she put out an Instagram photo of the family with Rick and David and Charlotte, and says, "Hi guys, on behalf of the family and I, we want to thank everyone for the prayers, texts, calls, and support. Our dad is a fighter, and your continued thoughts and prayers mean the world to us. We will update everyone when we have more information." And she has a lot of emojis, a lot of heart emojis and prayer emojis. So, it's good that because she was, very inactive on social media, obviously, understandably inactive on social media. So it's good to see her, post something. And
that was while it didn't give everybody a whole lot of information, it didn't seem as dire as it almost made you feel a little bit better about Rick's situation. But still, we don't know. But now we've heard a little more from Dave Meltzer, Dave Meltzer is a sort of a wrestling insider type guy that has been known for years to try to get to the bottom of and put out every tidbit of information that he can garner from or gain from anything that's going on in wrestling. And what is it that Dave Meltzer has just said as late as a few hours ago, right?
Yeah, well, Meltzer said this, and also Mean Gene.
Uh-oh.
I mean, Mean by God Gene.
Mean! Woo! By God! Gene!
As Rick would say in WCW. Mean Gene posted something that it was colon surgery, and Meltzer went into detail on his his podcast / radio show, saying that it wasn't heart related. Rick was in pain on Saturday. They got checked in, and he was put in a medically induced coma for surgery. He had colon surgery yesterday. It wasn't looking good during the day, and I guess the surgery went very, very well. And he is on right now. He's on kidney dialysis, which isn't good. But that's what the update is right now. So obviously, Charlotte's tweet or Instagram post earlier today, it's kind of a good sign that she posted that. But I guess Rick is not out of the woods yet, and it's minute by minute. So hopefully, we have good news in the near future. So that's the update we have on Rick, who's currently still in the Atlanta hospital. Wow. So that's what we know. There was, dirt sheets, and we all know dirt sheets are correct, right? Right, Jerry?
Sure they are.
Dirt sheets were, reporting that it was a heart-related issue, and that's not the case. Rick's publicist, or PR person, Melinda, says Rick had surgery today, not heart-related. I'm happy to report it was a success. Still a long road ahead, so please keep your prayers for Rick, Charlotte, Megan, David, and Wendy. So, and that was yesterday evening that she posted that. So it's not heart-related. It's colon. And I guess he's still on kidney dialysis. So,
I think you said something, or somebody said, but I mean, the first thing when you hear colon related, I mean, colon cancer is really prevalent, especially among men in the age bracket that Rick's in. But they also said that it was not cancer related, right?
I'm not sure where I read that, but I guess I think it was Meltzer that said that. Not cancer related.
Well, that's very good news too.
Yeah. So obviously Rick has had, this is questions I want to ask you about Rick before we get into your matches with him, your handful of matches you've had with Rick. But, you had your issues 5 years ago. That's coming up next month. We're going to have a show, talk about your 5-year anniversary of your cardiac arrest up in Montreal. But
we're going to do a whole show about that.
I mean, we're going to try to get, Dr. Sampson on, right?
Okay.
We'll try to get him on.
Yes, I haven't talked to him in nearly that 5 years.
Wow. So that's a little tidbit for a special show we have planned in the near future. But Jerry, you lived a clean, a straight edge lifestyle. No drinking, no smoking, no drugs. You lived a clean lifestyle. You're a guy that goes on the road, and I've read stories of you going up to wrestle a match and then driving back home at night. You don't go out and party. You listen to the Indians game on WTAM on the way home. That's Jerry Lawler. But Ric Flair, he's a guy that goes out and parties and drinks all night long. Has all the ladies. He lives the gimmick.
I'll just say this: I was with Rick and his fiancee Wendy just a couple of weeks ago at the Florida SuperCon in Fort Lauderdale. Sat next to each other for 3 straight days, signing autographs. He went. He got up and left and went to ask. He and I talked about he was going to go over to throw out the first pitch at a Miami Marlins game, and we discussed at length the way he should throw out that pitch. And I said, because I do that a lot, and the first time I ever tried it, I thought, man, you're a big time wrestler, and all these fans are in the stands, and they want to see how tough you are and everything. So I said, man, I'm going to try to throw a strike right in there. I'm going to try to throw this ball right through the catcher's mitt. And I found out immediately that the harder you try to throw that baseball, it goes straight down into the ground. And the worst thing you can ever do in throwing out a first pitch is to bounce it. You don't want the ball. You want to at least make it to the plate. And and that's what I was telling Rick. I said, don't try to throw it hard. Just lob it in there. Just make sure you don't bounce it. And he said, oh, no, that would be so embarrassing. And then, of course, you sent me video of Rick. He came back the next day and he said, oh my gosh, King, it was so embarrassing. I said, what? He said, oh, I bounced it. Not once, but twice. I said, how do you do it twice? And I guess after he bounced it in the first time, he said, let me do a redo. Let me do a makeover. And then he bounced it in a second time. So, but what I was getting at was, he was there just 2 weeks ago. We were in Fort Lauderdale for 3 days together, and he seemed fine. He seemed great. He looked at the picture of health. So, I don't want to say that what happened, this emergency that Rick is going through has anything to do with his lifestyle in the past or anything like that. And let me also, I think that Rick is such a bigger than life personality that a lot of those stories about Rick have been embellished, have been overblown. And I'm not, Rick will be the first guy to tell you that, hey, I know that sometimes, one of the stories you used to hear about Rick was, he would go somewhere and wrestle and make a $3,000 payoff or payday for the match that night, and then go out after the match and have a $5,000 bar tab. But Rick is a celebratory kind of guy. He's a generous guy, and if he's at a bar drinking, nobody else is going to pay for their drink. Rick picks up the tab. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he has been throughout his whole career. And but still, when you have a guy like that, it's easy for the tales to get blown up more than they really were, you know. So I'm just, it's easy to talk about, hey, Ric's past lifestyle affecting his health. But as far as I'm concerned, 2 weeks ago, just as recent as 2 weeks ago, he was the picture of health. I never thought a thing was wrong with him. He was in great shape.
So, like I said, as of this recording, that's what the update is on Ric Flair. So we decided to dedicate this show to Ric and also talk about him in general, and also the matches that you had, and share some audio, because even though you only wrestled him 4 times in your career one-on-one, you've had some great war of the words when it comes to promos and just pubbing matches that you had with his son, but also with him. So there's going to be some audio you're going to hear, some classic audio sprinkled into this Ric Flair episode.
Well, you know what? I mean, that's one of the things about Ric Flair. Yeah, he was a great wrestler, or is still a great wrestler. I guarantee you, Ric could, put on the tights and today and put on a better match than some of the half of the rosters around the country today. I mean, he's just that. He's just a natural. And in his heyday, he was basically, he was considered the best there was inside the ring for a long time. And what I think, well, it wasn't overlooked. I mean, everybody realized it too. But if you could say, I'm not even going to say as good as, I'm going to say even better than Ric's in-ring performance were his interviews, or were his promos that he cut. When the way he talked the fans into the arenas, the things he said, on TV about his opponents and about his upcoming matches. To me, that was the Nature Boy's strong point. Even though, I mean, yeah. So that when you put those two together, oh my gosh! I mean, that's why most people consider Ric Flair the greatest of all time. So yeah, we're gonna get to hear some of the great interviews that he did. And what is amazing is when you talk about two guys like Ric and I, our careers very similar in length, like 46 years each in the wrestling business. And for us to have only actually wrestled against each other, what, a total of 4 times?
4 times one-on-one, yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. But it was just, that was basically back because of the territory days. And, I stayed mainly in our Tennessee territory, and Ric was traveling all around the country when he was the world champion. He was in a different territory every single week. And that was just the life of the world champion when Ric had it.
So we have a lot of questions on Twitter from people asking about your relationship with Ric, and also, some questions about your little feud you had with him that lasted over 3 years, from your first match with him to your second match at Rump Arena to your third match at the Mid-South Coliseum, all the way then almost 20 years later to 2004 on your birthday, King. You wrestled Ric Flair one-on-one on a Monday Night Raw when Randy Orton was the guest GM and booked this match. So you had 2 legends in the ring, and Jerry Lawler and Ric Flair going at it on a Raw in 2004. I have some audio from that match. So we're going to talk about, highlight some of the stuff that happened with all those matches, but also taking some questions. We also have a voicemail question. We have a new voicemail feature where you can leave the King a question anytime during the week, and we'll play it during the show. The number is on our Twitter page, so you can actually hear your voice on Dinner with the King asking Jerry the Lawler a question. So, Jerry, both of you are, like I said, this is early 80s. This is 82, and Ric Flair, NWA champion, when Ric was in the ring and he was going to be facing off against, I forget the guy's name he was going to be facing off against. And you and him had a little bit, back and forth, and you challenged him.
You're the world champion.
You wouldn't be putting a little of that country jive on me now, would you?
No. Lance, would I jive the world heavyweight
world champion never puts his title on TV. Number one, I don't make $500,000 a year, and I don't fly around in a big jet defending that title on local TV programs. You understand? But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Because you're a big deal around here, because I even saw you on TV the other night. Boy, you were a real big deal the other night. Tell you what I'm going to do for you, what I'm going to do for you, and I'm going to do for Memphis, because I think it's long overdue. You get in that ring, the belt will be on the line, and I'm going to pull you through your hoop, Daddy.
Well, you heard it right there. Ric Flair said he would put the title on the line.
For 10 minutes, the World Heavyweight Championship is at stake in this ring, right?
That's what the man said. I didn't know you could have a 10-minute championship.
We, at the time, our Memphis territory, Jerry and I, in '82, we were working with, and had been all the way since the early '70s. My first NWA World Title match was against Jack Briscoe, when Jack Briscoe was the champion, and then it went from Jack Briscoe to Harley Race. I had matches with Harley Race and Dory Funk and Terry Funk, and then on to up to matches with Ric Flair. But that was before that. That was when we were primarily under the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance umbrella. That's who we were primarily working with in the 80s.
Yeah. So you had this impromptu NWA championship match in studio in front of a studio audience, and you were able to convince Rick to a 10-minute time limit championship match, and Lance was there doing commentary, Dave Brown as well. And you were in a submission. He had the figure 4 leg lock on you. The time ran out, the 10 minutes. Rick wanted to make you tap, so he put an overtime period on. And then he got counted out because he took his title and ran, and you proclaimed that you're the champion. And then Rick came out with Jimmy Hart and said, "Hey, $10,000 if you can bring me the blood and sweat and guts of Jerry Lawler." Cut this great promo about you. But
well, you know what? Let me stop you right there and say that the thing I really remember about that was it was almost unheard of to get the world champion live on your television show. I mean, the champion was a kind of guy that you did a big build-up to your match that was going to be at the arena, like in Memphis, for instance. You would do a build-up for a big match. You'd start maybe 2 months ahead of time doing a build-up for a match that was going to take place at the Mid-South Coliseum. And the only build-up you would have from the world champion would be interviews that he would cut somewhere, maybe in St. Louis, because that was the NWA headquarters at the time, maybe in St. Louis or whatever city he was in. He would have his weekly interviews that he would have to do, and then they would send him out to the different territories that he was going to be wrestling in on upcoming dates. And so somehow, I don't know how Rick was available to be on TV. I don't know if he was passing through or whatever, but I mean, this was this was in the day you didn't even get paid for wrestling on TV. You realize that TV, especially in the Memphis territory, the TV show was your 90-minute commercial to get people to come to the live events in every week in Memphis at the Coliseum. So that was where you made your money. That was where you got your payday, was at the live events, because there was no gate. Everybody got into the studios free. So to get the world champion to wrestle for free on a TV show was unheard of. And that was what made this appearance by Rick so special. And we I think really took good advantage of it, and the fact that we had Rick there supposedly to wrestle against, I don't know, Pat Hutchison or one of our local job guys, that he posed absolutely no threat or no challenge to Rick at all. And so then I came out and proposed the idea of, if he really wanted to impress all the people of Memphis, his first time ever live on Memphis TV, he wasn't going to impress anybody by beating this guy that offered him no challenge whatsoever. But if he were going to wrestle somebody that would give him a little bit more competition, and I tried to do the old, and you hear Rick talk about it, I tried to do the old swerve by saying, you'll probably beat me in a matter of minutes because you are the world champion, and I'm just trying to goad him into the match and that sort of thing, which finally worked, and we had the match, and we left it into a situation where Rick put out a $10,000 bounty He left so mad at me that he put out a $10,000 bounty on me with Jimmy Hart. And so, man, from that week on, it made it so easy to draw big crowds with Jimmy just bringing in somebody to try to collect that bounty. And it didn't even have to be a name that people were familiar with. It was just, it was just all about the personal issue between Ric Flair and I and the bounty that he had put out on me. So, having him on the TV was great. And I can't remember why we didn't, I guess we just didn't have an immediate date on him for a Coliseum match. Yes,
it was three years in the making. 3 years until you and
now that's a build-up right there.
And I read on different websites just doing some research, and obviously, King, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I know you will. You had September 30th, 1985 is the Mid-South Coliseum bout between you and Flair. Almost 10,000 fans showed up, $95,000 gate, and tickets were selling for $8, $15, and $25. And today, with inflation, Jerry, the $95,000 would equal $215,000 in today's currency, and tickets would go for $18, $34, and $56. People wanted to see this, with inflation for 2017. And like I said, 3 years in the making, and you actually, on September 23rd, there was no Monday night card because of the Mid-South Fair. So you had 2 weeks of build-up, and you guys on TV recaps of your career, and you guaranteed on the 30th against Flair that you would win the belt, and you even quoted the Beatles' "The Long and Winding Road." And
ooh, wow.
You quoted that in your promo, and saying that I know the fans want this title for me just as bad as I want it, and Monday night I'm going to give it to them. So here we go. Flair and Lawler, Mid-South Coliseum, jam-packed 10,000 people in the Mid-South Coliseum, and it was a quote-unquote dusty finish. You guys wrestled in Rump Arena.
We're talking about an NWA World Heavyweight Championship match. It's signed Jerry Lawler going against Ric Flair.
It's signed, it's sealed. Now all I got to do, Lance, is deliver. That's right. And, everybody knows, the people in Lexington, everybody connected with the promotion company around here, how long and how hard I've strived for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this, Lance, is the big opportunity. There's never been a card, there's never been a group of talent amassed like this in the history of professional wrestling. And I am just tickled to death to have my shot at the World Championship on a night like this. I can't think of a better place than Rupp Arena, Lexington, Kentucky. I know there's going to be thousands and thousands of fans there, and I'm going to try to leave there the happiest person, and I'm going to try to make all those fans real happy too.
Jerry, best of luck. You got to be there to see it all. The Great American Bash on tour and the Bluegrass Spectacular.
A couple weeks before, so you had 2 matches with quote-unquote dusty finishes. How was your feelings about that, not getting, either way, a clean loss or a clean win, and having these kind of like, DQ finishes?
Well, I mean, I think that's one thing, or a couple of the things that led up to the reason Jerry Jarrett made the decision to stop working with the National Wrestling Alliance and switch over to Vern Gagne's American Wrestling Association, the AWA, and who had Nick Bockwinkel as the world champion. And because I guess what Jerry Jarrett was really looking for at the time was a title change. I mean, this was at a time when everybody wasn't selling out. I mean, everybody wasn't doing that huge a business at the time. And for us in Memphis to be drawing 9,000 and 10,000 fans to the Mid-South Coliseum, that was huge. That was business that was being talked about around the country. So Jerry was expecting that the NWA may look at this and say, hey, let's do something to keep that big business going over there. Maybe a month-long title change, or they had done a title change with Tommy Rich from Harley Race. That was just a matter of weeks or whatever, and that gave Tommy Rich just immediate credibility, and it also it showed to the fans what you really wanted to do was not. I mean, it wasn't to give me credibility. It was to give Memphis credibility. It was to show to the fans that, hey, a title really could change hands here in Memphis, Tennessee. And so, that was what Jerry Jarrett was hoping for and working for behind the scenes. But I think that there was a personality conflict somewhere along the line. It may have been with Dusty and Jerry or whoever and Dusty was, I think, doing the booking for the NWA at the time. And, so it became apparent that whenever Ric Flair and I wrestled, there was going to be some sort of fluky finish to the match. And, no chance or hope of a title change. So then I think that's what led to us breaking away from the NWA at the time. But, you talk about the big match. That was 1985. That was part of the Great American Bash when Turner and the Atlanta thing was just really getting rolling. And so a lot of those NWA guys came into Memphis on that same night. And, me and Ric Flair, of course, get credit for drawing the big house, but there were, it was we had the Fabulous Ones against the Fabulous Freebirds. We had the Koloffs against the Rock and Roll Express. We had a lot of the NWA talent, on that Great American Bash show there in Memphis. So it was a big deal. But once again, after such a big, huge buildup, our Memphis fans were let down and just, kind of deflated after that match.
Do you remember? You had the same finish in your Lexington, Kentucky at Rump Arena in front of 7,000 fans. And then you had the same finish in your September 30th match a couple weeks later. Do you remember why the finish for that match? Do you remember that? I mean, I have it here in front of you. I'm just asking. I'm testing your memory, King.
Well, please. I'm going to get a big F on that test.
You were disqualified for tossing Flair over the top rope.
Oh, okay.
So that was the finish for both those matches at Rump Arena and the Mid-South Coliseum. And, some websites have, wrote about this, and I, obviously need you to debunk this or confirm. You were not pleased with the typical spots that were being called, and you didn't like Flair's chops. I mean, who likes being chopped anyway?
No, that is one thing I've told everybody. I remember telling Vince McMahon about that's the one thing in wrestling that I hated. But I did learn to hate a couple more over the years that were just like, oh my gosh, I hated Bret Hart's sharpshooter. And maybe he just applied to me because of the things I said about his mom and dad. But I really thought he was going to break my legs in the sharpshooter. And the other thing was Flair's chops and Flair's figure four leg lock. And I don't know if it was the fact that I had my right leg broken, playing football in like 1980 or something like that. But Flair's figure four leg lock was like the real deal. I mean, I was ready to start crying. And just the chops. And I think that Flair resented the fact that whenever he was about to chop me, I would just, I would sit there with my chest wide open, and then right at the last second, I would throw my left shoulder out and to basically block and take some of that sting away from. I don't know. I just had a thing about getting slapped in the chest like that. I hated it. But anyway, no. If somebody says that I was unhappy with a match with Ric Flair, that is not true. I mean, hey, when you're wrestling the world champion, you don't go in there expecting to call the match. I mean, that's what the champion does. And so, no, I mean, the great thing about Ric Flair, and to me, why he was probably the best NWA world champion, is Flair was the best at making his opponent look like he could beat him. And there had been NWA champions in the past that wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they could beat their opponent. I mean, like a lot of guys, legitimately tough guys, Harley Race, and legitimately really good wrestlers like Jack Briscoe and Lou Thez, especially. I mean, Lou Thez was the kind of guy that, he would make it known to everybody that he could have the upper hand in the match anytime he wanted it. But Ric Flair would, I mean, you know, he was great at making his opponent look like he should be the world champion.
Right.
And to me, that was what a world champion should always do, because, you know, he's not wrestling in his hometown. He's usually wrestling in you know, his opponent's hometown or his opponent's favorite city. And he's wrestling against the fan favorites from there. And so, you know, that was what he always did. He went out there and he made whoever he was wrestling look like they should be the world champion. And then some kind of way, by hook or crook, he left with the title. And the people were usually left with the feeling that, man, if that hadn't happened, our guy would have been the champion. You know, if Flair hadn't done this, and that's where he garnered that's where he got the title, the dirtiest player in the game. You know, if Flair hadn't cheated, our guy would be the world champion right now. And that was Flair did that in every match I ever had with him. I mean, you know, he would go out of his way to make it look like I could beat him. I mean, that was what Rick did.
Crockett and Jarrett had another combined show 2 months later, and is this according to the website, Jerry? Because we all know websites are correct. That you refused to work with Flair, and then Coco Beware faced off against Flair, and then you were tagged with Dusty. Combined with another slew of great wrestling legends in a match. Was that more? Is that true that you turned down to refusing to work with Flair, or was that just more of a bringing up the other matches on this card?
No, never would I refuse to work with a world champion. Are you kidding?
Right.
No, this was another situation in where we had a lot of the NWA guys on the card, and we wanted to integrate their talent with our talent. So we tried to mix, different guys in every match. And so that's why we put me teaming with Dusty Rhodes. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that Dusty had a lot to do with booking these shows and these cards that, that his talent, that their talent was used on. And I really think that Dusty was responsible for putting that card together. And it was Dusty teaming with me and Magnum TA against, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. And was it Arn and Ole?
Yeah, Ole, yeah. Ole.
Yeah, Arn and Ole and Tully Blanchard. And so, I was the only Memphis guy in that match. And then, and that left a spot, and we were trying to push Coco Beware big time at the time. And so then Coco going against Rick, and then I think I don't know if the Road Warriors were on that card or Fabulous Ones or what. But anyway, what we tried to do there, and I think Dusty had a lot to do with the booking that one, was just mix the talent together.
Now, Jerry, we talked about these three matches, the impromptu match in studio, the Rump Arena match, and also the big one at Mid-South Coliseum. But Jerry, recording this on August 15th, it's been 35 years to the date yesterday, August 14th, that you had that impromptu in-studio match against Ric Flair. 35 years ago yesterday, man. Woo!
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's.
When I watch it back on YouTube or whatever, and it seems like yesterday, but I guess that's 35 years.
It's a long. I wasn't even born yet, Jerry.
No kidding.
Shout out to Alan _CheapShot on Twitter, who posts a lot of the on this day history, pro wrestling history. He posts a lot of that, and he posted that yesterday and he posted a little clip of the video of the match. So shout out to him for reminding us that 35 years ago yesterday. So now moving on, 1985, last time you and Rick were in the same ring together one-on-one. You guys did square off in the 1992 Royal Rumble for a little bit, but that's in the group setting, obviously, for the Rumble, so that wasn't one-on-one, but you guys did cross paths in the WWE. 92, I think it was, 93 Royal Rumble in the early 90s. And then you had this long period that, you guys didn't interact in the ring at all. He was in WCW, you're in WWE, WWF. And then 2001, you're making the indie rounds, and you're facing off against his son, David Flair, who I think actually is a former WCW World Champion, I believe, back in the old Vince Russo booking of WCW.
I think they did. I think they did try to give David a big push. You know, it was David. I don't know. It was one of those situations where I just don't think. I don't know. I just don't think wrestling was certainly in his blood. I mean, my gosh, when you got the most famous wrestler ever as your dad, you know, wrestling's in your blood. But I just don't think it ever had the appeal or the thrill to David that it did to his dad. You know, I don't think David ever had that love for, you know, being in the ring and having matches or anything. He just, you know, and I don't know. I'm not trying to speak for David, but you know, that's some really, really big shoes to fill when when you're coming in and you're Ric Flair's son, and you know, do people expect that you're going to be as good or better than your dad? You know, and that's why over the years, a lot of guys, instead of trying to put that pressure on their sons, I did it as a matter of fact. But I had seen it done in our Memphis territory when Robert and Ron Fuller and their dad, Buddy Fuller, they were really, their real last name was Welch. And Roy Welch was the guy that owned the wrestling company. And Roy had wrestled for years, was Roy Welch. And then, you know, when his son, Buddy, came along, Buddy Welch, and started wrestling, instead of him being labeled as the owner's son, they changed his name to Buddy Fuller. And Robert Fuller and Ron Fuller were Buddy's sons. And they did that name change just to try to take the pressure off of, you know, of the name of a famous or well-known father. Same thing with me when Brian started. My son Brian is named Brian Christopher is his middle name, Lawler. And so instead of him trying to have to come in and especially because I was still wrestling and everything at the time, and instead of him trying to come in and have to try to follow in my footsteps, to let him be his own person, we just had him wrestle as Brian Christopher, and we didn't even mention the last name. So a lot of the fans didn't make the correlation. And then if you remember when he was in the WWE, we talked a little bit about that last week. You know, that was a situation where I almost denied that he was my son, so that he could be a guy out there on his own, under his own, not having to live up to anybody else's reputation or that sort of thing, you know. So I think that in David Flair's case, it was tough. It was real tough on David to try to, you can't. I just feel like he probably feels like he had to, fill his father's shoes, and that's almost an impossible task, So, but anyway, yeah, they did. They pushed David for a while, but I just felt like David's heart was never really in it.
It's on his bio for David Flair, growing up, he never wanted to be a wrestler. He always wanted to be a state trooper. But he, 1999, really? Yeah, there you go. In early '99. He got involved. So he was wrestling, and you wrestled him in 2001 in Nashville. I believe it was for a NWA show in Nashville, either in late 2001 or early 2002, because you and Rick cut some promos, one together, and then Rick did one on his own after the match. And we'll play some audio, sprinkle in as we talk about it. But Rick says that he is WWE co-owner. So it's during the time period that when he came back in late November, the same day that you came back to the WWF in 2001. But man, I know you guys weren't in the ring together, but you faced off against his son. But this promo, even though it's not officially for WWF, you guys have some great banter without getting mad at each other, without raising your voice. You have some great quips back and forth, and just great chemistry between you two.
So hang on a second. So you're telling me that you've taught your kid enough in a couple of days to be able to beat me in Nashville, Tennessee tonight? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, I'm trying to tell you that I've taught him enough if you wanted to cram it into hours and minutes and days, clearly enough to beat you tonight in Nashville. And then go down to the stockyards and raise hell like I used to do. Come on, man. I have a lot of respect for you, but, you know, they're always telling us, you know, Ric Flair this and Jerry Lawler that, and you guys got to move. So this is a big deal. But you know what? No, I do know what. I do know exactly what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to make an example out of your son.
Yeah, and when you're right, there was always great chemistry between Rick and I, and that's why I really regret that we didn't get to have more matches and interact more during all of those years, because I think it could have been some, we could have had some great war of words and some great matches and had that been the case, I just really regret that we didn't get to do it more.
I have to correct myself. He's a former WCW United States champion. And he's a former WCW World Tag Team Champion with Crowbar. So that was he has those on his belt, even though I know he didn't want to really be a wrestler.
the dreaded Crowbar.
he is a former champion in professional wrestling. So like I said,
sometimes you get in trouble for using insider terms in the business. And believe it or not, I mean, a lot of times they would Crowbar, believe it or not, is an insider term.
Did you know that? What is that? I mean, do we want to spill the beans on what that is?
Well, a crowbar was a term used for a wrestler that was just really stiff in the ring and just not, like a crowbar is unbendable. I mean, a lot of times, when you're in the ring with your opponent, and you need them to be flexible. You need them to be easy to move around with and everything. And a crowbar was a person that was just stiff. A lot of times these guys at first, when the big muscle bound guys started becoming prominent in wrestling, they usually with all of those muscles became stiff and just not limber and not agile and that sort of thing, and they were referred to as, oh my gosh, this guy's a crowbar, because that was just, and so then they stuck that name on who was the crowbar? Do you remember?
Crowbar real name was Christopher Ford. He was trained by Iron Mike Sharp.
There you go, Iron Mike. But anyway, yeah, that's we got totally off the subject, but that's what a crowbar was. And so for some guy to get labeled with that nickname as his real wrestling name, he must have been really stiff.
So So I didn't know that. So when you say stiff, he's not a guy like Vader who is stiff with punches. He's stiff in the ring, like he's just not very agile.
Yeah. Just hard to move around and just hard. And the stiffness goes with all facets of the match. I mean, the punches, but more not mainly. More so than the punches was just his movement in the ring and you trying to move him around and just, they're just really hard and it's just a struggle with them rather than to be. I mean, I can think back on so many guys that you would work with and it was just like a flow that was unbelievable and how easy it was to be in the ring with, like Ric Flair. For instance, Nick Bockwinkel was another guy, and so many guys that were just so smooth as silk to work with their movements and all that sort of stuff, and certainly the exact opposite of a crowbar.
So you faced off against David, and we're not going to talk about the match that much, but basically gist of the match is you beat David Flair, but you pile drived him 3 times, Jerry. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Before you pinned him. Even
more than I pile drive poor Andy Kaufman.
Oh, 3 times. So there was a great promo. Rick by himself, basically recapping what happened. He put you over, but he was not pleased with what you did to his son.
Sort of a backhanded compliment, right?
Yeah. So great promo from Rick here.
Nature Boy Ric Flair, and for those of you that are not aware of it, I am 50% owner of the World Wrestling Federation. But right now, I'm talking to you as the father of David Flair. Now, last Saturday night, my son drove from Louisville to Nashville to wrestle the King, Jerry Lawler, to wrestle the King, the man, the most famous athlete in the history of Tennessee, bar none. As I said before, take the Titans, take the Volunteers, throw them both in the garbage can. Jerry the King Lawler is clearly the main man. Woo! In the state of Tennessee, even in Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Denver, Colorado, no matter where I was, when I was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, I heard the name Jerry the King Lawler. I came to Tennessee twice myself. The King and I sold out Rupp Arena. We sold out the Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. Where the King and the Nature Boy got in the ring, we sold out. We went an hour hard. I know the King real well. And last Saturday night, my son, who probably was a little bit in awe of the King, because the King is a genuine legend, got in the ring. I didn't see the match, but from what I've been told, I can be very proud of what my son accomplished that night. What I'm not proud of right now is your hero, Jerry the King Lawler. Because it's my understanding that Jerry the King Lawler used his patent pile driver not only once, not only twice, but 3 times on my son before he covered him for the 3 count. Well, that's great, Jerry Lawler, but this has become a very personal issue between you and I. Just by random choice, just imagine me coming to Nashville one night, or wherever it might be, and your kid being on the card, and me have an opportunity to take your kid out in the middle of that ring and put the figure 4 on him until I heard his ankle break, until they could hear him crying so loud 10 rows back at ringside that everybody in the building would be in the ring. Be just like the old days. Get the Nature Boy off Lawler. Just think about that, Lawler, or you yourself, King, because it can happen, man. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way to, jet fly right into Nashville or somewhere else. And I'm going to find you or your kid or both of you. Maybe me and my kid against both of you. But now this is personal, King. It's the Nature Boy, and the King, Jerry Lawler. And a couple kids involved very emotionally. It's going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and I'm telling you, the Lawlers and the Flairs, we're at it. Big time.
2004 comes, and you're both in WWE. Rick is still active as a wrestler. So are you. And Randy Orton, on your birthday, on the Monday Night Raw, is the GM.
Wait.
What?
You jumped all the way up to 2004. I wanted to tell a little story about something that happened in 2003.
Oh, okay, juicy. Here we go.
No, it's not juicy, but it was one of my favorite Ric Flair moments.
Okay.
We were just, I was there. Gosh, I think it was. I don't even remember what city it was in, but anyway, I was already in the arena, and Rick had just come in, just getting to the arena, and I'm walking down the hallway, and there were different locker rooms and different office rooms on either side of the hallway, and so I passed Rick in the hall. And he's like, "Hey, King." And I'm like, "Hey, Rick." And as soon as he says, "Hey, Rick," he opens a door, right? He goes right past me, and he opens this door and closes it. And all of a sudden I hear crashing and just big commotion inside the room. And then Sergeant Slaughter goes running in there, and the door closes again, and things kind of quiet down. But apparently what happened was Rick had come in, and this was right after they had brought back Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
And so Eric Bischoff has just been there, and he was in his own little dressing room there. And Ric Flair comes walking past, just all nonchalant, opens the door, goes right in to Eric Bischoff's dressing room, and just starts punching the crap out of Eric Bischoff, and just lambasting him, I guess, over something that had happened when Bischoff was booking down in Atlanta, and Rick was down there. But then he just and I guess what was told to me was that Sergeant Slaughter had to pull Ric Flair off of Eric Bischoff, and that was just a kind of out of character thing for Rick. I mean, I'd never seen him lose it or anything in the dressing room with anybody ever before. But that was a big backstage talk about that incident.
Rick is a very emotional man.
Yes, he is.
Very emotional.
Rick will cry at the drop of a hat, and that's not that's not a bad thing. I'm sort of that way too. I'll tear up.
Oh, me too.
So anyway, yeah, he's an emotional guy.
Yeah, he's great though. I remember back up here in after what's the pay-per-view? Fastlane here in Cleveland. You, me, and Lauren were having dinner at the hotel, and Rick was with Charlotte at the bar, and he kept really plugging up the hummus. He loved the hummus. He was having for dinner at the bar.
I have never tasted hummus, and I will never taste hummus. Hummus is on the list of beer, wine, whiskey, and hummus. Those things will never touch my lips.
It's really good.
But Rick was loving hummus.
Oh, he loved the hummus, but so he couldn't find the bathroom, and you and I and Lauren were sitting off to the side, away from the bar, doing our own little thing. And Rick couldn't find the bathroom. I'll never forget this. He walked by our table twice, and each time he walked by, he wooed. He went, woo! Here's Ric Flair at midnight, wooing because he can't find the bathroom. But I love Rick as a wrestler, and also just great entertainment.
Rick, that was one of my favorite things that I don't talk about much about Rick. Rick has always been known as the ladies' man, right? I mean, he's always been seen. Of course, now he has a lovely fiancée, Wendy, who kind of keeps a more watchful eye on Rick. But in the past, Rick has been known to be a ladies' man. He always talked about Space Mountain, 60-Minute Man. You can't be first, but you can be next. I mean, some of the great Ric Flair ladies' man lines in the past. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. On more than one occasion, Rick has come to me and said, "When it comes to ladies, King, you are my hero."
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good compliment coming from Ric Flair. Trust me.
So you should be the he made the Space Mountain line famous.
Girls, I'm going to be available anywhere you see my name on the marquee, and you can ride Space Mountain all night long for Edo if you're 18 years old or over. Woo!
So Jerry Lawler could be the originator. I mean, what ride would you?
I'm not I'm not saying.
What ride would you? Would you be the teacup one? The teacup ride at Disney?
Oh man, I'm old school. I go way back before Disney World. I go back to being the Tilt-A-Whirl. You remember those things?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man, no, but I think Rick, he would see me on more than one occasion with a lovely young lady on my arm, and he would tell me more than once, "You're my hero, King."
There you go. Well, that's because Jerry always has a young woman on his arm, on your arm, right? I mean, that has to be the reason why.
Well, of course, now my lovely fiancée Lauren keeps a very watchful eye over me, and we've been together for the past over 5 years now. Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
And Lauren and Rick's fiancée Wendy are very good friends, and they love to compare their engagement rings, which Rick and I had a few words about that too. I think I got engaged to Lauren before Rick got engaged to Wendy, and I don't know if that put a little extra pressure on Rick. He claimed that it did, but anyway, then they became engaged, and so. But yeah, Lauren and Wendy are really good friends, and they have both. What's the word? I don't know. They've taken away some of the. Man, I'm at a loss for words here. I don't know what they've done, but we're not the ladies' men that we used to be in the past. Either one of us, I guess.
You're starting to settle down, King.
There you go. We've settled down.
Jerry Lawler settling down. Before we wrap it up about Ric Flair, we have some questions for you from Twitter and a voicemail.
Well, but you know what? You never got to the 2004 match.
That's right. Yeah. So you had
was it on my birthday, as a matter of fact.
On your birthday, it was a great wrestling match. I know 2000s, known for high flyers and the hardcore stuff and whatnot. Even I think it's before the PG era, but this was a great classic wrestling match. You guys had like 8 minutes to do your thing, and there's a question about this match that somebody wants to know about your match in 2004. Were all the spots planned, or was some of it called in the ring?
Oh my gosh, no! That was back in the day when you mainly called stuff in the ring, even in the WWE, and especially two guys like myself and Ric Flair. We didn't. We would never sit down before a match and go over things and what we were going to do. Then because we're the two kind of guys that like to go with what's getting over with the fans. You got to have that spontaneity and be able to do things on the fly that the people are responding to. So no, that was not something that was. I mean, that was stuff that was called in the ring back then, and I loved it. I mean, it was a great match, and of course, it being on my birthday, the WWE they're famous for spoiling special days. For not just me, but for everybody. But poor good old JR. I mean, every time there was anything special, and a special day would be, your birthday, or if you were wrestling in your hometown. Those 2 days, you knew nothing good was going to come of that. And so, they had me in a match with Ric Flair, and of course, you get beat. And if you remember, the match I had with Miz for the WWE title was on my birthday, and I got beat. So that's just one of the things you expect on your birthday in the WWE or in your hometown. Usually, not good things are gonna happen to you. And you can go back and look at. I don't know what it is about that, but you can go back and look over, and it's not just me. It's almost everybody, all the talent there in the WWE. But yeah, we had a great match. I really enjoyed it, and he got me to tap out to the figure four, but he was holding on to the ropes for extra leverage during that figure four. So that was classic Ric Flair. That was one of the ways that he wanted to show the fans that without that little bit of cheating, without being the dirtiest player in the game, the King could have easily won that match. Yeah. So that was what's one of the great things that I will always say about Ric Flair. He was the best at that, at making his opponent look better than he was, and that's one of the biggest compliments you can give to a champion.
Now in 2004, also you guys were involved in a what is this musical chairs match. It was you, Stacy Keibler. We'll talk about your elimination. Ric Flair was also great entertainment in this one. Tomko, Chris Jericho, Tajiri. They were in this little musical chairs put on by Eugene. Good old Eugene, I think was GM of the night. And the winner would get a title shot. And Jericho won, but your elimination, Stacy got to the chair before you. You sat on Stacy's lap, and then you switched. You had Stacy on your lap, trying to say that you're going to win. Or not be eliminated.
Wait a minute, can you say that here on this thing?
What you
I had Stacy on my lap?
Yeah, Stacy on your. It's true. I mean, nothing bad about that. It was on TV.
No, nothing bad about it. No, it was great, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So then you were eliminated, and then Rick was strutting around, and he was eliminated. And he threw a tantrum, a Ric Flair tantrum. just great entertainment. And there's another question. Both of these from Unmasked Rey Mysterio on Twitter. That's his Twitter name. He wants to know, do you regret working with the AWA instead of the NWA? It seems like Flair versus Lawler would have been printing money. I think you hit on this earlier.
Yeah, and Flair versus Lawler would have been the opportunity to do some huge business many times throughout the years. But no, excuse me, I almost choked on one of my waffle fries there. But no, I don't regret it at all. I mean, because man, the people that I work with in the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel especially, was, I mean, to me, Nick Bockwinkel was as good a world champion as there has ever been. I mean, Nick Bockwinkel was right up there with Ric Flair, and then, of course, Kurt Hennig, and then, of course, getting to win the AWA World Heavyweight Championship the first time there in Memphis, Tennessee. No, you can't. I don't regret working with the AWA at all. It was probably, other than Andy Kaufman, the best thing that ever happened to my career.
Another question. That was from Unmasked Rey Mysterio. Eddie Austin, who was a good fan of the show.
Hey, before we get off that, what was the Twitter guy's name?
Unmasked
Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
Well, listen, in Danbury, Connecticut, Danbury, Connecticut.
A good segue.
On the 26th of August.
Yeah.
He and Rey Mysterio, the real Rey Mysterio, we're going to be the MCs at the Taco Festival.
Oh.
In Danbury, Connecticut, the Taco Festival. And he and I are going to MC a taco eating contest in Danbury, Connecticut on the 26th of August. So
who the hell?
Who?
Okay,
me and Rey Mysterio.
No, I know. But I'm saying, and I apologize for swearing. Who the hell would have thought you would see Jerry Lawler and Rey Mysterio emceeing a all-you-can-eat taco eating contest in the year 2017?
I know. It's a crazy world we live in, isn't it?
I love it. I love it. I love it. That should be fun. That should be a lot of fun. I hope you have fun. I hope you are you going to enter? Are you going to eat a lot of tacos? No.
Oh no, I have to be the MC of it. I can't indulge in eating the tacos.
Can't partake.
No.
Eddie Austin asked about the Coco Beware.
Eddie Austin's got to be the biggest King Lawler fan ever. Great guy. Lives up in Jackson, Tennessee, and man, he just keeps up with everything. And he probably knows more about me than I know. What did he ask?
Well, he asked about the backstory behind that when you teamed with Dusty and Magnum TA, and how come you didn't face Flair? So that question we answered. So Eddie asked that question. And Eddie and I DM each other. We private message, and he always corrects me if I say something wrong or.
Yeah, because he knows, man. Eddie Austin knows. Now let me say this too. You mentioned me wrestling David Flair. There was another match all the way in 2009 that I had, and I can't remember where or, gosh, I can't remember what city it was in, but I had a match. Ric's other son and David's brother, Reed Flair, and I were partners in a match, and Ric was in our corner in that match. Ric Flair in the corner of Jerry Lawler and Ric's son, Reed Flair, in 2009. And if anybody knows any of the, or can remember where that was or any of the details of that match, I know we won.
Eddie Austin. Eddie Austin may know that. Yeah, get on the case.
It wasn't in our Memphis territory. It was somewhere else.
Get on the case, Eddie. That's your job for this week. Is finding out about that match with who? Reed Flair.
Reed Flair, 2009.
Yeah. So I'm sure Eddie will find out the details for that one. Another question from the Pencil Pusher. He wants to know: was there any talk at any point of bringing Jerry into the NWA/WCW once the AWA partnership with Memphis went away?
Not really. Not once it was WCW. You know, I did some stuff with the Atlanta when it was, I guess. I think it was. I know it was on Channel 17, and that then went on to become the Superstation, and with Turner Broadcasting and all that sort of stuff. Because I just saw on YouTube, I saw a match with me with Gordon Soley, doing the announcing and that sort of thing on I guess it was WCW at the time, but I think it was before it went big with cable.
Right.
But once the cable thing hit, we were too busy trying to defend our own territory there in Memphis for me to think about that. That was the reason I never went to WCW or to WWE for a long time, was because I was part owner. I was 50% owner of the Memphis territory. So I knew that if I left, our territory would just, and I'm not trying to sound conceited or big-headed or anything like that, but our territory would have dwindled up and died off, just like all the other territories did that had their main superstar leave and go to either WCW or WWE. And the way that we were able to hang on for so long in Memphis was because I was the main star, and we were able to bring in other people, and I was able to get them over and make them stars in the eyes of our territory people, our territory's fans. So no, I would have never thought about and wasn't asked. I think they knew better to go anywhere at that time.
All right, here's our first ever voicemail question. And like I said, all the information, if you want to leave Jerry a question for any other episode, the information is on our Twitter page at Dinner with King. You call the number, you put in our voicemail number, and you can actually leave a voice message. and I actually can play it. And here we go, Jerry. So here's a question, our first voicemail question on the show.
King, did you ever pull a rib on Ric Flair the few times he wrestled in Memphis or during your time in the WWE? And hope Rick gets better. Thanks.
Yeah, we all hope Rick gets better. You're right. And you know, it's going to be a boring answer because no, I never pulled a rib on Ric Flair. You know, when Rick came in to Memphis as the you know, the NWA champion, it was like everybody, including myself, were, you know, you're just in awe of the champion. I mean, Rick was one of those guys that he, you know, you respected him. Right. And he wasn't one of those kind of guys that threw his weight around or anything like that. But the way he carried himself, you know, as champion, he just commanded that respect. And no, he was not somebody I would never, at that time, I would never think of pulling a rib on the world champion. And so, you know, I can't even say I wish I had a story like that, but because I don't, you know, no, I never pulled any ribs on Ric Flair.
So there was the questions for our Ric Flair episode. A couple show notes I want to you know, throw out there. Kenny Bolin, who was banned from the show. I think, can we lift the ban? Can we get the ban away from Kenny now? It's been long enough, right?
Well, I mean, you can not ban him from the show, but he's certainly still banned from the restaurant.
Well, baby steps. We'll do baby steps. So Kenny Bolin is not banned from the show, but he did when we posted about the SummerSlam '96. Kenny Bolin was actually at the Indians game where he threw the first pitch out the day before SummerSlam '96 here in Cleveland, and he had no idea that you were there. So I'm sure he was pleasantly surprised to see you at the Indians game up there in Cleveland. Want to give a shout out to Dave Jones, who he posted a picture on Twitter of him wearing Dinner with the King shirt with Teddy Long. Holla, holla,
yeah,
playa.
I saw that. I retweeted that. I sure did.
And our probably the most scenic listener of the show goes to Lance up in Washington, who was doing some fishing and listening to the show, and he posted a picture. He tagged you and tagged the show. A beautiful, I believe he's on the lake and has a nice wooded area, doing some fishing while listening to the podcast. So we appreciate you guys tweeting at us and letting us know where you're listening from, and also wearing the shirt.
Yeah, you know what? That's a cool question for us to ask. I would like to know that because I wonder that a lot. I know a lot of people, you know, take the opportunity to listen to the podcast like when they're on their way to work or if they're, you know, wherever they are. When they're listening, I'd like to know that, you know, because it's a lot of times interesting. Like you say, you know, who would have thought that somebody would be out there listening to the podcast while they're fishing on a lake or whatever?
Yeah.
So let us know where you're listening to the podcast, where you are when you tune us in.
Here's a better idea: take a photo right now where you're at listening to the show.
Oh yes.
And tweet at us. So if you're driving, be safe. Don't do it while you're driving. But if you're out listening at the backyard or in your office, take a photo, post it, and tweet at us at Dinner with King. And I'm sure Jerry will see it. I'll retweet it from our show page. We're really interested to see where you're listening from. If you don't want to tweet a photo, let us know your location. We want to know. I know we have people all over the world listening to our show. The UK, Canada, obviously here in the States. Very, very, a lot of countries listen to our podcast. But I know this has been a long episode. I feel like a Ric Flair episode deserves its justice when we talk about Rick. I don't want to rush that. So I really appreciate you guys listening for probably the hour and a half show that we have here for you. Hope you enjoy it. Any final words about Ric Flair, Jerry?
Well, just, I mean, you know, I hope we've expressed throughout this podcast that we think the world of Ric Flair and, you know, the greatest of all time is certainly a well-deserved handle for Rick, and we wish him the best, and hopefully he'll make a full recovery from this and be back walking past us at a bar sometime in the near future going, woo, come on, Rick, kick out. And, you know, that's what I tweeted out. We want you to beat this just like you beat all your opponents in the ring, and we feel like he will.
You can check out Jerry this week on the WWE Network at the pre-show for SummerSlam out in Brooklyn. Look for that. And then next week will be our Dusty Rhodes, our spotlight show on Dusty Rhodes. We'll have some audio from classic confrontations with Dusty Rhodes. And looks like Cody Rhodes is going to make an appearance on Dinner with the King, and we're going to hype your match with him, Jerry, next week on the show. So looking forward to that, too.
It's going to be big.
All right. The tab is paid. Thank you, Jerry, for doing that during the show. I know we've been sitting here.
Once again. Oh, I know. We've been here so long. You know, that smile that was on our general manager's face is, look at him now. He's like looking down as watch this. How much longer are you guys going to be using that table? Okay, we're almost we're through, as a matter of fact.
You better leave a big tip for the waitress. We use her table.
I always do. I always do.
All right, we'll talk to
my favorite waitress. Well, she's not a waitress, but she
a server
for us. Naomi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody tweeting photos, your location. Also, if you come to the barbecue spot or the bar, tweet us, let us know. Tweet at Jerry. He retweets everything. Sometimes doesn't read it. He just retweets it without reading it. We all know about that, Jerry.
No, one time that happened.
One time. The New York Daily News posted about it, Jerry. That's made the headlines. Ugh.
Okay.
Make sure you read it. So we'll talk to you guys next week on Dinner with the King.
All right, see ya.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.